We're good to go? Oh, cool. Echo. Well, thank you everybody for coming today. I just want to do our treaty land acknowledgement. Winnipeg is located on Treaty 1 territory, the homeland of the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nations in Treaty 3 territory. So good morning, everyone. My name is John Orlico. I'm a city councillor for the River Heights Port Garry ward, and I'm also the chair of the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services. It is my pleasure to MC this morning's funding announcement on this beautiful sunny long weekend day here at City Hall. I'd first like to welcome a dear friend of ours and no stranger to City Hall, Minister Dan Vandal. We also have Mayor Scott Gillingham and another colleague of ours, Councillor Chambers. Our first to speak today is the Honourable Dan Vandal, Minister of Northern Affairs and Minister responsible for the Prairies and Economic Development Canada. Minister Vandal is here on behalf of the Honourable Marco Mendonça, Minister of Public Safety, to make a funding announcement under the Building Safer Communities Fund. Minister Vandal.
Thank you. Thank you, John, and it's always a pleasure to be back at City Hall to see old friends and to make great announcements. And I want to thank Mayor Gillingham for hosting us here this morning. C'est vraiment un plaisir d'être ici, retourner à l'hôtel de ville pour visiter des amis et faire des belles annonces. I'm very pleased to be here with all of our partners today on behalf of my colleague, the Honourable Marco Mendonça, Minister of Public Safety. Today, we are having a chance to talk about gang and gun violence prevention. And I want to acknowledge and I want to thank Mayor Gillingham for his ongoing efforts to reduce gun and gang crime in our city. Tragically, we've seen the impact of criminal activity all too often in Winnipeg, and we share the city's resolve to make a difference. And with respect to combating gun violence, the federal government has taken action with the historic legislation we've introduced in Bill C-21. The bill proposes a national freeze on handguns. It would introduce strong new laws to protect victims and those at risk of domestic violence. It would also increase the penalties for firearms trafficking and smuggling. These are historic commitments, and I know Minister Mendonça has been on the ground all across Canada, speaking with law-abiding gun owners, with hunters, with Indigenous peoples to ensure their rights and their way of life are protected. But we also know we cannot arrest our way out of the problems on our streets and in our communities. And that's why the government has been steadfast in its commitment to focus on the grassroots causes of gun violence. We know that gun violence is a tragic reality across our country, and we know that it often has links to gangs. Yet for too long, we've neglected addressing the root causes of gun and gang violence. The federal government has made major efforts to change that, because everyone deserves to feel safe in their communities. And that sense of safety and security is shattered every time a violent crime takes place. Our efforts have to start there at the community level. Along with the historic legislation we've introduced, we are also providing funding directly to municipalities and to Indigenous communities, namely through a $250 million federal program called Building Safer Communities Funds, which brings together supports from all levels of government to stamp out gun-related violence as well as gang activity. Local efforts, grassroots and community efforts can address the social conditions that lead to criminal behavior. It's also about making sure repeat offenders stay off our streets. And earlier this week, the Honourable David Lametti, Minister of Justice, introduced Bill C-48, which would reform our bail system to do exactly that. But being tough on crime is simply not enough. We need to get to the roots of the problem. And that begins at the community level, addressing the root causes of crime. And those conditions can lead to people getting drawn into violent behaviors and criminal activities. And the federal government stands firm in its conviction that any solution to gun violence and gang violence must include prevention and intervention methods. And that's why today I'm very pleased to announce that the City of Winnipeg will receive $4.5 million under the Building Safer Communities Fund. This fund will the root causes of gun crime to people who are involved in gangs or at the risk of joining gangs. It's a targeted approach that will ensure that communities most at risk will receive support in a timely manner to invest in the safety of their residents. Our Winnipeg partners with us today know just as well as we do that when it comes to gun and gang violence, we can all do, and we can all do it together. À mesure que nous entreprenons ces efforts, nous savons qu'il n'y a pas une solution. La violence par arme à feu est nous préviendrons des tragédies et sauverons des vies. As we undertake these efforts, we know there is no one-size-fits-all solution to crime and gang violence. By investing in grassroots efforts and by investing in our communities, people will feel safe, and we will prevent tragedies, and we will save lives. Merci beaucoup. It's a pleasure and honor to be back at City Hall. Miigwech. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Vandal. I still call him Dan, but for us, it'll be Minister Vandal. It really is a super pleasure to be able to partner with the federal government and to really welcome Minister Vandal. And we would have been welcoming Minister Duguid as well. No, sorry, not Minister MP Duguid as well. But he was a little stuck up in Ottawa, but he's trying to get back because he also really understands the importance of announcements and partnerships with the City of Winnipeg. So I just want to give him a little bit of a shout out as well. So, and as chair of the Community Services Committee, I really do truly appreciate this investment in our community safety from our federal partners. We hear it every day. We're working at it incredibly hard with our provincial partners as well. But we have to not only be tough on crime, but we really have to get to the root causes of crime, including poverty, unsheltered, homelessness, drug addictions, many, many issues that will take us all working together to be able to actually combat and make our streets safer for all. So on that point, and someone who's very, very dedicated to making sure Winnipeg is safe for all, I want to introduce our mayor, Scott Gillingham.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Orlico. Good morning, everyone. Thank you also, Councillor, for the treaty land acknowledgement. And thank you so much, Minister Vandal, for this excellent announcement. Welcome back to City Hall. And we certainly appreciate your commitment, Minister Vandal, and your government's commitment to investing in our city so that Winnipeg can become a safer community. This funding is going to allow us to explore new options and new partnerships to address issues like gun violence, gang activity, and youth crime, and as Minister Vandal says, help us get to investments into preventing really some of the root causes of crime. We are all aware that Winnipeg, like many other cities across our country, is facing challenges. Youth crime in particular has been concerning me. It's concerning me a lot lately. And a few weeks ago, when I had the opportunity to speak briefly with the Prime Minister when he was in town, I raised the issue of youth crime, specifically youth violent crime, and asked for the federal government's assistance. And so, Minister Vandal, I greatly appreciate today's announcement that will allow us to address the issues of youth crime. Frequently, too frequently, that crime involves gangs or the use of weapons, and it's something that demands our immediate attention. As a community, we need to continually recognize the potential of our young people, to guide them, to provide them with opportunities and resources they need to make good choices And so this funding will help us to move towards that goal. Our libraries should be places of learning. Our transit systems should be safe hubs of transportation that connect us across the city. And our parks should be vibrant community spaces. None of these should be sites of fear of violence. But recent incidents of crime in these locations have underscored the need for immediate and effective action. With the help of today's announcement, with the help of the Building Safer Communities Fund, we'll be in a stronger position to address these issues and to ensure safety for people in our public spaces, safety for all Winnipeggers, and safety for all of those who visit our city as well. The allocation of this funding is not just about reactive measures to curb crime. It's also about proactive investments in our youth, in our community, and in our future. It's about laying the groundwork for a comprehensive community safety plan that addresses the underlying conditions that gives rise to crime and actively works to prevent it. It's about creating a Winnipeg that is safer and stronger and more united. And this funding and these investments will complement other actions that we're taking as well. Just this morning, I announced the hiring of Mr. Jared Baker, who will be the Mayor's advisor, senior advisor on homelessness and addiction. He will help to coordinate the city's response to homelessness, street safety, addiction, and mental health. And earlier this year, of course, I also announced our intent to hire a team of community safety officers who can patrol our transit system and in other public spaces in time, like libraries and parks, to help address the unsafe conditions and the feeling of unsafety, and to help connect vulnerable people with the supports that they need. And in the weeks ahead, we'll also discuss options to enhance safety in our libraries, particularly in our flagship downtown library. These are all pieces of a larger puzzle that we are committed to solving together. It will take time. It will take collaborative effort from all levels of government, from community organizations, from citizens alike, from our city departments. But I'm confident that we can and we will create a safer Winnipeg for all. And today's announcement from Minister Vandal of the federal government's investment to make our community safer is welcome news and will help us achieve that goal of a safer Winnipeg. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Mayor Gillingham. Minister Vandal and Mayor Gillingham will now be available to answer any questions that the media may have. I will pass it over to Crystal Bishop to moderate. Thank you all for coming.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Orlico. And to give everyone a chance to participate, please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. And please begin by identifying yourself and naming the media outlet you represent. There's a microphone right here if you guys don't feel like yelling.
Hi, bonjour. Je travaille pour Radio-Canada. Ma question est pour Monsieur Vandal. Je voulais savoir en français, est-ce que vous savez dans quel type d'initiative plus précisément cet argent va être investi et s'il y a des conditions au sujet des Autochtones pour que les programmes financés viennent aussi en aide aux jeunes Autochtones et métis de la ville?
Oui, absolument. Bonne question. Premièrement, c'est un investissement de 4,5 millions qui va être investi à la ville de Winnipeg. Et c'est pour supporter des programmes qui vont aider les jeunes qui sont à risque de rejoindre des gangs ou à risque de participer dans des aspects violents. Ça fait que absolument, il y a des opportunités pour partenariat avec les Premières Nations, les Nations métisses inuites. Mais c'est à la ville de Winnipeg de déterminer les paramètres et puis comment que ces fonds vont être distribués à travers la ville.
Puis peut-être une clarification aussi, ces fonds viennent de 250 millions de dollars, mais il y a eu une annonce qui a été faite aussi en début 2023. On voulait juste préciser quel fonds ça vient.
Ces fonds viennent d'un plus grand fonds qui est administré par Sécurité publique Canada. Le plus grand fonds, il y a un total de 250 millions de dollars, puis ça, c'est 4,5 millions qui viennent de les plus grands fonds. Merci. Sure. I'm trying to think of the question now. Absolutely. This is a $4.5 million investment in the city of Winnipeg to help young people who are at risk of falling into gang activity or gun-related crime. It's a program that's administered by the city of Winnipeg. It's available to community organizations, to indigenous organizations to access those funds, as long as they're good prevention programs that have real community involvement. And it's important to note it's up to the city of Winnipeg to develop the final parameters and the administration of it. But really it's aimed at grassroots organizations that can access those funds.
Joanne from the Free Press. Just wanting to ask, obviously there was the May 8th announcement, $390 million. So this is Winnipeg's share of that commitment.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I was looking the wrong way. This is obviously Winnipeg's share of the $390 million commitment you folks announced on May 8th, I believe. Usually I'm quite loud, so I'm
Yes,
not
it
sure.
is. It's certainly a tranche to the city of Winnipeg of the larger budget, which is $250 million, I believe. This is $4.5 million. It's a slice of that funds. It's not. I think there's opportunities for further partnerships.
And I know you just explained that the city will decide where the exact dollars go, but do you have ideas in mind of what you'd like to see in terms of the types of investments they could pay for with this money?
Well, the types of investments, ideally, in my opinion, are investments that are preventative, that are supports to young people, that prevent young people from joining gangs and getting involved in violent activity. I look at there's many community-based organizations across the city of Winnipeg. I'm thinking of Bear Clan. I'm thinking of a whole series of organizations throughout the city that may have access to this. The biz organizations, of course, as long as they're community-based, they're reflective of Winnipeg neighborhoods, and they're doing good work.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks again. All right. Yeah, perfect.